How many of you have experienced a bad boss or a toxic workplace? Me? Yeah? I think I'm up to 7 now. We spend over 100,000 hours of our lives at work. Don't we all deserve something better? Gallup and my colleagues agree. The disconnect between the joy of learning and the joy of working is getting bigger every day. Workplaces and the people in them are not okay, which is sad, since the purpose of public education is to develop the workforce of the future. Schools aren't perfect, but they evolve. It seems that many of our workplaces missed the memo and are still hustling away in an outdated version of work. Leaders could take a few lessons from elementary teachers who intentionally build classroom culture using emotional capital and a well-thought-out plan. That's why I started a JOYFull Workplaces Revolution, a way to bring some 4th grade magic to your workplace. As I often told my students on a Monday morning, if we all have to be here, we might as well make the most of it. I'm Gen X. Schools in the 70s and 80s were serious. Desks in rows, paddles if you were misbehaving. Kids were seen and not heard. I stood in the hall a lot, but I didn't get paddled because I would have got it at home too. Technology was a mechanical pencil, a calculator, a TV rolled in on a cart. And then in the 90s, when I started teacher prep, educating the whole child became the focus. We talked more about social and emotional needs and meeting kids where they are. We began to see the students as people and not just employees. And now we have Gen Z. I love teaching these kids. At 10, they are no longer learning to read, but reading to learn. They are eager and curious. Their world feels full of possibilities, not unlike your employees on their first day. This tech-savvy generation is now in your workplace, deeply aware of mental health, diversity, identity, and inclusion. They are not interested in living to work, but rather working to live. You know who sparked this shift in classroom culture? Women. When educational models moved away from fear and control to empathy and compassion, classrooms became more human-centered, and that changed how future generations learn, lead, and work. Think about an elementary classroom, 4th grade specifically. Every detail of that space is meticulously and intentionally designed around what's best for kids and what will help each one thrive. Teachers call it classroom management, but really, it's culture. I hear a lot of leaders saying no one wants to work anymore, and I don't think that's true. It's not that they don't want to work. Maybe they just don't want to work for you. Teachers own the issues in our classrooms. We observe, collect data, and course correct to change behavior and ensure success. Until business leaders own their culture the way teachers own their classrooms, organizations will keep wondering why joy, people, and profits have left the building. Remember Goldilocks? She wasn't just looking for steel-cut oatmeal and a power nap. She was conducting a culture audit. And here's what she found. The too soft bear hates conflict and wants to be everybody's friend. Policies, suggestions, deadlines, optional, accountability. What's that? Without structure and consistency, you get confusion, which leads to resentment, which leads to people leaving. They don't want chaos. They want clarity. Next, you met the too hard bear, the micromanager from hell, always wanting updates, tracking all your logins and badge swipes, and frequently calling and texting you after hours. Control might look efficient in the short term, but it erodes trust. It kills confidence and creativity. Fear lights a fire, but it also shuts people down. As a leader, you are always teaching culture, not through words, but through actions. Showing up late, avoiding hard conversations, or letting things slide, you're modeling chaos. Demanding perfection, dismissing ideas, or being unpredictable. You're modeling fear. And here's the irony. Both bears think they're preventing problems, but in reality, they are the problem. Then our girl Goldie met just right Janifer. I've never been a micromanager. Honestly, I am way too lazy for that. I've never been an anything goes person either because my inner perfectionist would never allow it. I've always found myself somewhere in the middle, firm, fair, fun. But being just right didn't happen by accident. I was shaped by mentors, colleagues, parents, and the students themselves that taught me more than any leadership textbook ever could. In fact, here's a real letter from a former student to my next year's class. Success in 4th grade means follow directions, obey the rules, use your brain, respect others, turn things in on time, have fun, get your reading minutes, raise expectations, ask questions, don't get in trouble, expect great things from Mrs. Wheeler. Wow, that's practically an employee handbook. I wasn't just teaching content, I was teaching culture. And that's what Just Right leaders do. We build teams that feel safe, seen, and supported so they can do their best work and be their best selves. So, what makes the Just Right leaders so effective? Emotional capital. That magical mix of empathy, adaptability, authenticity, optimism, and trust. It's what makes people want to show up and do their best work. Teachers start building it on day one. We know every positive interaction is a deposit into a child's emotional bank account. That's what keeps them engaged, motivated, and growing. The same thing is true in your workplace. Every decision a leader makes either deposits into that employee's account or drains it dry. Actionable feedback, deposit. Professional development, cha-ching, deposit. Meetings that could have been an email, withdrawal. Generally being decent and doing what's best for humans, big deposit. Ghosting, gaslighting, bullying, big withdrawal, huge. When you overdraft emotional capital, your culture collapses. People stop trusting, stop trying, and eventually stop showing up. That's why I developed a method to assess culture based on the same continuous school improvement cycles that I learned from district leadership. No more relying on cool vibes and wishful thinking. We assess 12 areas so that nothing falls through the cracks. It takes work, but trust me, emotional capital is worth the effort. And no matter where you are in the plan, do, study, act cycle, it's never too late to plant a seed of change. Celebrate wins, big and small. Learn from failure. Coach instead of overcorrect. Align work assignments to business and professional goals. Give people a purpose. Be transparent. Be kind. When you invest in emotional capital, you're not just improving culture. You're creating a thriving ecosystem where people feel safe, seen, and supported to do their best work. I know what you're thinking. Yes, culture work can be costly and time-consuming, but replacing your best people over and over and over costs much, much more. Measure culture, drive results, spark joy. Data points take many forms. In 4th grade, it might be a report card, but sometimes it's a handmade card or handmade letter. Dear Mrs. Wheeler, I look forward to your class when I come to school. You're an awesome teacher. I think you're very cool. You're smart and fair and friendly. You're helping all of us. And if I got to grade you, from me, you'd get A+. This is proof of what happens when you create a human-centered space where people feel valued. This isn't about the next leadership course or some fancy AI breakthrough. It's about what Just Right leaders already know. The joy of learning and the joy of working come from the same place, the heart of trust compassion, empathy, and belief. Here's your homework. Be the leader that gets a letter. Spark joy, build trust, inspire people to show up and be their best selves. When you own it and join the Joyful Workplaces revolution, the future of work looks exactly like 4th grade. Thank you.